Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. All right, first question. Thoughts on 5 sets of 3 on your heavy compounds 3 days a week? Would this compare to 3 sets of 5 in terms of volume? No, it would be higher volume. Unless you're using the same weight, in which case you're just spending more time and you're getting less actual possible quality reps, unless you're using your 5 rep max. No, not really. Here's your problem you're going to run into. You're dealing with potentially 15 very heavy sets on each lift done every week. And if you're doing sets of 3 like that, you're probably no longer a novice lifter. I'd be very, very careful of this on doing this on multiple lifts. If you wanted to periodize things and you wanted to drop out of sets of 5 for a really heavy phase, I'd go ahead and do 3 sets of 3. If you're going to space it out 3 times a week, right? That's probably more ideal if you're going to do every lift 3 times a week, and that would give you 9 sets of 3. But I think 5 sets of 3 on all of your big lifts 3 times a week, you could probably do it if you're bulking really hard. I don't think it's ideal most of the time. Again, depending upon the person, the context in which you're doing, there's a reason I do 3 sets of 5, honestly. Again, I think this could be hard to recover from. I think if you're wanting to, again, do everything 3 times a week and you're wanting to be in that rough intensity range, I think 3 sets of 5 is better. I really do. And I'm not saying you couldn't do it this way, and there are certain lifts that lend themselves better to sets of 3, like, say, power cleans or something like that. But your other lifts, no, I don't think this would be ideal. I don't think it would be ideal, just in terms of the intensity levels you'd be hitting for that many sets every week. I think it would lead to overtraining if done for any extended period of time. For most people, I'm not saying you couldn't program around it, but you don't have the same margin for error on your programming. You're going to have everything done a little more perfect. So I just wouldn't necessarily lean in that direction for most people. I wouldn't, not on all of your big lifts, maybe one lift every week. All right, next question. Current program, 3 times a week, full body, double progression, reps and weight. Squats, 3 times 4 to 6. Deadlifts, 1 times 4 to 6. Bench, 3 times 4 to 6. Rows or chins alternated every other workout, 3 times 4 to 6. Press, 3 times 4 to 6. How are we looking with this, Coach? Any recommendations? It looks pretty good overall. I like your overall rep and set scheme and exercise selection with what you're doing. As far as the progression goes, though, I really can't say further what's going on there without knowing what you're doing for progression. How exactly are you planning the progression on this? How are you programming it? How are you dealing with the weight increases? How are you dealing with potential stalls? This is the stuff that gets really, really, really important. I mean, exercise selection, the reps and sets matters, but how you are programming this specific volume and intensity is really important. Because, you just kind of gave me a little bit of a rep range. What are you doing? Do you have a set progression like you do sets of 4? Then you try to go to sets of 5, then 6, then you add weight, then go down to 4s again. What happens when you get stuck? So these are things that we need to know. These are things that we need to know to give a further assessment. Now, if that's what you're doing, like let's say you're starting with a weight you can do sets of 4 with, and then you work towards adding a rep here and there, get to sets of 5 and then 6, and then you add weight and then drop down to 4 again. As long as it's micro bumps, like no more than 5 pounds at a time on those jumps, I think this is a decent enough system. I think you can make real good gains doing it. So that would be my advice, is that have your progression planned out pretty well with what you're doing. I mean, your starting point looks good, though. Like, it does look good. I kind of like what I'm seeing. I think this looks good. But I'd like to know what you're doing with your actual progression. Maybe you can answer down in the comments, say, yeah, that is what I'm doing with it. Or give an idea, then I can give you another nod as far as what you're doing with that. Also, kind of knowing where you're at, like, are you an intermediate lifter? How advanced are you? Things like that. They probably matter a little bit in assessing something like this. And I try not to do a lot of time assessing people's individual programs, though. All right, next question. I remember in one of your videos you said people do not actually need squats to get bigger legs. If that's true, what else will cause leg muscle growth? Whenever I used to do leg extensions, hamstring curls, and leg press, I made no progress at all and never got stronger, but after doing only heavy barbell squats 2 to 3 times a week, they improved tremendously. Well, I hope you didn't. Leg extensions, no. It's completely worthless exercise. Nothing but a knee destroyer, in my opinion. No, you can get big legs doing leg press. I wouldn't recommend it because you're going to end up with a weak back and a weak core. You know, you see these silly ass people talking about, oh, the back is a weak link in the squat. Well, that's because they're not squatting. They did leg presses and other silly shit to build their legs, and it'll work, but you're going to have a weak core. Whereas if you're squatting, you make other things grow besides just your legs, and it's going to carry over to other exercises, and you're going to have a better synergy in your overall training. I mean, for example, if you're doing the row and the press and other stuff, and you're already squatting heavy and building all those muscles through your trunk while squatting and building your legs maximally at the same time, it's going to carry over to your other big lifts. So in theory, squats could help your upper body grow. Yeah, because of the extra strength they give you potentially on these other big exercises, right? And people don't think about it that way. They get so caught up in this, well, what will make this muscle grow? Instead of saying, what will make my whole body grow? What will make my entire body grow? Instead of thinking of the body as a bunch of just body parts like a Lego, what will make you bigger, right? And then you can always put some finishing touches on whatever's lagging, right? Make everything bigger. Squats make everything bigger. Potentially, the potential to. But no, you can build just as big a legs in theory off of leg presses. It can be done. I don't think you can with all this other silly shit. I think that's all a waste of time. You can get big legs on leg presses. It's been done by plenty of guys, even without drugs. You're not going to get as big overall, though, as you will with squats, right? You're not going to be as functional. You're not going to be as big overall. Your legs might be just as big, but you're not going to be just as big. It's a better way to look at it. All right, next question. What's your opinion on research stating lightweight, high reps to failure is as effective at building muscle as 6 to 8 reps over 3 to 4 sets to failure or near 1 rep max weight? Jerry Brainium had a video about it. I think the research seems valid. At least in the short term, it does seem to be able to produce the same amount of hypertrophy, right? It does seem to be able to. My question is, how are you going to progress and program it in the long term? You can't. So you're dealing with something that has its own extra pain, its own extra fatigue that can, at least for short periods of time, produce the same muscle growth, but with disproportionately less strength, which leads to less overload in other phases of your training. I think people who are training with the really, really high reps, like they're talking about in these studies, 25 plus reps to failure, who gain any muscle doing it, I think that they are shortchanging their potential long-term results. I'm not saying they won't gain muscle, they will. But from a long-term programming perspective, I don't think it's particularly valuable. I don't think it's useful at all. I don't think it's useful at all. I think you would be better not going too high in your reps ever for any reason. You know, program your phases of higher reps. But personally, I think 10 to 12 is really the upper threshold of usefulness in terms of actually being able to program it for anything useful for long-term outcomes. Yeah, but if we're talking short-term, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, sure, you can absolutely gain as much muscle doing that. But is it going to help you a year down the road as much? Probably not. All right, next question. Hey, Jason, I was wondering if just doing 1 set of 5 reps per week for each of the big 4 lifts would be enough to maintain strength I have built on them. This is assuming that calories are roughly around maintenance and drugs are not involved. No, you'll probably slowly detrain over time. Can you maintain probably your strength for a little while on that? Yes. Yes, particularly if you're hitting true 5 rep maxes. But you will eventually detrain over time. Now, is this the sort of thing sometimes really older lifters who've built a base have to do? I'm talking guys up in their 60s. Yeah, sometimes they have to do stuff like this to try to hold on to what they have, and they can only handle so much volume as far as recovery and everything goes. But, I mean, I'm assuming you're coming in because your lifestyle's not allowing you to train, and you have to just get in, and maybe you have 30 minutes or 45 minutes on Saturday to train. Right? Maybe that's what's going on. And this is all you can do. You have less than an hour per week you can actually get in the gym. This might help you. This will help keep you from detraining for a little bit. But you will lose some muscle and strength over time. It will occur over time doing this. This won't be enough. But, I mean, I understand if you're in that sort of life situation and that's what you have to do, then by all means. But if you really and truly want to maintain any sort of significant base that you've built, you're going to have to get in more often than that. I mean, you're going to have to. You're not going to be able to maintain on that indefinitely. And you could start seeing decreases probably within a month. But like I said, if it's a short-term thing, like you've got a 2 or 3 month thing going on in your life where that's all you can do, and you can only squeeze that in, and that's literally all you can get in there because of some stuff going on in your life, then go in and do that. It will help you keep most of your gains. But you're not going to keep all of them. You're not going to keep all of them. And you need to be realistic about that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 3.